9:05. I believe we'll go ahead and get started. My name is Chris Rogers with MetLife, and I'm happy to be here and hosting and supporting the Wellness at Work for 2021. And I'd like to introduce Beth Butler-Fidel.
All right. Thank you so much. Can you hear me, Chris?
Absolutely.
Yay. Yay. Well, welcome, everyone. We are so excited to be with you today. And yes, he did call me Beth Butler. Fatal is actually my new last name. I just was married a week ago Saturday. It's crazy. So yeah, whole story behind that, all exciting stuff, and so blessed and so excited. There you go. For those of you that are on the floor now, you can get up and get back in your seats, and so excited. But welcome to our 2021 Disability in North Carolina Wellness at Work event. We are so excited to join you today and bring to you some incredible speakers. And thank you again, MetLife, and particularly Chris Rogers, for your mastering work. This is not an easy task to pull off, especially given our virtual environment. And I don't know about you guys, but I am so ready to be in one room again, and we look forward to that happening at some point. But so excited to have you here. Wanted to introduce to you our keynotes, Dr. Nicole French and Tommy Riemann, who is also going to be joining her. But Dr. French is a licensed clinical psychologist in North Carolina, and she's the clinical director at Veterans Bridge Home, a community behavioral health consultant. She's also a uniformed Army Reserve psychologist and has served for 9.5 years on active duty, where she gained clinical consultation, crisis intervention, and leadership experience across combat, field, and clinical settings. You are really in for a treat with the message that Nicole's going to bring you. In addition, and I think Tommy Riemann, the Director of Philanthropy for Veterans Bridge Home, will also be presenting with her, but I'm going to hold on the introduction and leave that to Nicole. You're going to hear, also see a brief video about some of the work that Tommy has done as well. So I don't want to spoil that. But Nicole, welcome. And we are so excited to have you join us. And wanted to just welcome again everyone. Sit back and enjoy today's message on the importance of, again, mental health and wellness. So sit back and relax and enjoy the video.
So a technical note, you'll note that there's a multimedia viewer that will pop up in your lower right-hand corner of your screen. You will play the video on your side. This is an interesting technological challenge we're facing today, but it should work fine with our attendees muted and whatnot. So I'm going to post that video now, and when it appears, go ahead and hit play.
Thanks, Chris. And if you could just walk us through, I know you had to do that for me as well. If folks are not familiar with where that multimedia viewer is, there are 3 dots, I guess, down at the lower right-hand corner of your screen. And if you click on that, is that correct?
If you accidentally close the multimedia viewer, it'll pop up naturally on its own. Okay. But if you accidentally close it, there is a triple dot at the very bottom right, and that will allow you to get back to the multimedia viewer.
Perfect.
All right. So all right. I'm going to go on mute and enjoy the video.
Good morning. My name is Nicole French. I'm an Army Reserve psychologist, currently serving as a psychology consultant for Army Medical Command. And I am clinical director at Veterans Bridge Home. and I wear many hats, one of which is supporting community care providers, support the mind health of military and veteran families in this community. I also co-lead a community health collaborative called Mission Changing Lives Together, which is really dedicated to suicide prevention efforts in our community. I'm grateful for the opportunity to be with you. I'm excited to really think about diverse ability and wellness in the workplace. We hope you will be inspired today as we touch on concepts that help us understand how human beings respond to trauma and change that impact our self-knowledge and identity. Following Tommy's incredible personal story of resilience and post-traumatic growth, we will look at key ingredients of a culture of care in the workplace, to include friendship. I will talk about the science of interpersonal neurobiology through an introduction to the Healthy Mind Platter, and invite corporations tuning in to think about their employee wellness plans. We will end with a brief introduction to Veterans Bridge Home and highlight organizations a part of our community care networks available to you. Tommy, thank you for being willing to share your personal story, and Tommy will be introduced by the 2007 State of the Union address that will be played for you now.
Tommy Riemann was a teenager pumping gas in Independence, Kentucky when he enlisted in the United States Army. In December 2003, he was on a reconnaissance mission in Iraq when his team came under heavy enemy fire. From his Humvee, Sergeant Riemann returned fire. He used his body as a shield to protect his gunner. He was shot in the chest, arm, and received shrapnel wounds to his legs. Yet he refused medical attention and stayed in the fight. He helped to repel a second attack, firing grenades at the enemy's position. For his exceptional courage, Sergeant Riemann was awarded the Silver Star. And like so many other Americans who have volunteered to defend us, he has earned the respect and the gratitude of our entire country.
I now want to introduce my friend and teammate, Tommy Riemann.
Thanks, Nicole. Hi, guys. I'm coming to you today from Charlotte, North Carolina, here at the headquarters of Veterans Bridge Home. Thank you for having Nicole and I. It's an honor to be here, and we love the work that you guys are doing every day to support veterans like me and Nicole throughout the state of North Carolina. As you saw in the video, I've gotten to do some pretty incredible things, and I'm going to walk you through that personal journey that over the past 15 years I've taken. It is filled with highs and lows and some incredible heartache, but even greater, some breakthroughs. And I hope you'll take that journey with me, and here we go. I joined the Army in 1999. I was from Independence, Kentucky, where I grew up, my mom and dad together with my sister. I was captain of the football team, wrestling team, and all I ever wanted to do was join the United States Army. I wanted to be an infantryman. I had 3 uncles that inspired me to join, and so I did. At the ripe age of 18, I entered the Army, went down to Fort Bragg, North Carolina, and became an 82nd Airborne paratrooper. There, I deployed to Kosovo and got to see my first experience of world culture. An awakening it was, but I loved it. I loved the idea of serving on a unit and a team to accomplish a greater mission. And to me, that was the Army experience. From there, as you know, 9/11 happened and we responded. Not necessarily for me in Afghanistan, but Iraq. We deployed to Iraq in 2003. I was a part of a a specialized unit called LRSS, Long Range Reconnaissance Surveillance. It's a 6-man team that goes deep behind enemy lines to identify targets, destroy targets of opportunity, but more importantly, give the eyes on the battlefield for commanders to make decisive decisions within the battlefield space. So I was probably 21, I think, at the time. And being on a 6-man team, you knew your teammates better than really your family. They were your family. At 21, I had no idea what war would look like. You know, I'd seen enough film and kind of understanding of what I thought war was, but nothing like what I was about to endeavor. So basically how it works for a LRSS team is you pitch your mission idea for whatever the concept is to the higher generals, and they decide which team goes in. There were several teams, and we were one of 3 selected. They selected our team to go in near An-Najaf, which was the choke point coming down from Baghdad to stop forces from coming through Kuwait. So we were dropped into Iraq 3 days prior to the ground war kickoff. As you can imagine, it was pretty intense, and it was a hairy time being the ripe age of 21, experiencing war for the first time. As we entered, we rocked in 12 miles with 120 pounds on our backs. We were ready to sustain operations for up to 7 days, food, water, ammo, and our hide site. So as you can imagine, as intense as it was invigorating. It was exciting. We had practiced every day for the past several years for this day, and that day came. We made it into our hide site, and so hiding 6 people in the desert's a little tricky. So we built these hide sites out of PVC pipe, chicken wire, bed sheet, spray adhesive, and you put the sand on top, and it makes a makeshift sand dune. So as we got into our hide site, we immediately saw enemy forces coming down from Baghdad through An-Najaf to take on the staged forces there in Kuwait. We instantly started to call in airstrikes to take out these targets. And for me, that was my first lived experience of what trauma really looked like. I had no idea what I was seeing at the time. At the time, it was, this is the mission, we will execute. But when you have time to sit back and process it, those are human lives that you're taking, and it was a massive responsibility. And so we'll come back to that. But for me, that was the peak. You know, it was our original mission to go in. We did it. We were deemed heroes of the battle. We wiped out several hundred Iraqi forces as a team calling in those airstrikes. And as we were extracted, the war quickly shifted. Long range kind of went out the window, and we occupied Iraq very quickly. So our mission had changed. We would bounce around different parts of Iraq to support wherever there were isolated incidents or contacts, from IEDs to mortar attacks. We were to go out, identify those targets, and silence them. That's what we did. And so 2 weeks at a time, we'd bounce around, and we found ourselves December 3rd, 2003, just outside of Baghdad. We were on a mission to go identify a couple key leaders that were getting together, and en route, we were ambushed. There were 8 of us, 3 vehicles, and we hit 3 IEDs, 3 RPGs, and a hail of SMARM gunfire. Well, I used my body as a shield to protect my gunner. I was shot in the arm, the chest, a bullet went off my helmet and took 11 pieces of shrapnel from my body. We continued to engage the enemy, eventually silencing them. We moved out of the kill zone, and I got out to assess the situation. Well, I realized I'd been wounded at that time. My gunner, who a bullet went off my helmet into his buttocks and shrapnel to his legs, as well as my buddy Bruce Robinson, who was in the rear vehicle, who was severely wounded, ended up losing his right leg. While we were back there assessing and helping Bruce, we were ambushed a second time by 15 more enemy insurgents. It was only there we came together, silenced the enemy, We were extracted, and December 3rd changed my life forever. I was taken from the battlefield to Baghdad, from Baghdad to Walter Reed, or Landstuhl to Walter Reed down to Fort Bragg. That all happened within 7 days. And as you can imagine, living this culture, constantly on edge, constantly ready to take the life of another human being or protect one, that transition within a 7-day period it's not an easy feat, not an easy task. So I found myself back in the States. I was married and didn't have kids at that point, but coming back to my wife was just a strange thing. We never really connected, and from that day forward, my relationships would, as you will see, continue to have problems. It wasn't until 2004 where I was notified that because of those actions on December 3rd, 2003, I was nominated to receive the Silver Star and Purple Heart. It was an honor for me just because it was what those men had thought of my actions in supporting them. And it was a significant day in one sense, but it was a burden in the other because I felt responsible. I felt, I left those guys coming back to heal. They were still in country fighting. So a lot of mixed emotions trying to deal with. During that time, I lost my sister to kidney disease. She was only 21 at the time. We were 15 months apart. I lost my grandfather. There was just a lot of trauma, a lot of heartache, and it wasn't all combat related. It was life still happening while we were trying to reintegrate back into society and continue on serving. So a lot of amazing things happened in 2005. I was asked to become the face of what's called America's Army. It was a video game to connect with individuals, to learn more about the military and have that experience. I then became an action figure. And as you saw in 2007, the guest of President Bush at the 2007 State of the Union address. Throughout that time, I really tried to understand who I was. Through that, I was traveling the country, telling people my story of what happened to me, and never really taking the time to process that, nor did I learn or understand the tools how to process that. I didn't understand what to do with all the different emotions that were contained within, nor did I have a healthy outlet to get them out. So I relied predominantly on drinking and taking pain medication. And for years, I would mask all these emotions within, whether it was relationship problems, feeling guilty as a father, you name it, I felt it, and I would mask it with all of these different unhealthy opportunities. So I was really lost from 2007, 2008, 2009. I didn't really feel like I belonged anywhere other than maybe if I went back to Iraq, I could find myself again. So during that time, I volunteered to go back to Iraq with a National Guard unit, and there it was completely different. We deployed in 2010. I was with a heavy weapons company. A lot had changed. We were there in the beginning. Now it's established 7 years of combat in Iraq. The rules of engagement were different. And, I was not in the right state of mind to be a deployed soldier. I really wasn't in retrospect. At the time, I was self-diagnosing, saying, this is exactly what I need. So I redeployed, and there, everything kind of caught up with me. I had time to slow down my life, to really think about all the poor decisions and things that I did over the course of those 7 years trying to combat and deal with the emotional baggage and trauma. So things came to a head in 2010. I was in my CHU one night, and I just kind of had it. I had lost my wife. I had lost my home. I was a full-blown alcoholic. I had a pain pill addiction. And, I split up my family. There was all these different emotions that just came together at one moment. And I remember sitting in my CHU and writing a letter to my kids. It was my goodbye letter. And I had often thought of, these terrible thoughts, I am better off, everybody is better off without me here. I was the key ingredient to everybody's problems. So the easiest way to do that was extract myself from the equation. So I wrote that goodbye letter. I laid out pictures of my kids, and I was just covered in tears and couldn't believe what I was about to do, but it felt like the right thing. So I took my rifle, put it in my mouth, and put selector switch from safe to semi to safe, and would cycle back and forth several times. And luckily, my roommate, Tony Meredith, came in and tackled me and asked me what I was doing. He quickly got me to mental health provider there in country to sustain me and get me back on my feet. And I thought, great, I talked to a healthcare provider. I told him my problem. Everything should be fixed. And went back out on missions a week later, tried to bury it all again. And I was excited to come back home where nothing was established. I didn't have a place to live. I was coming back into my girlfriend at the time. And I had all this mismanaged trauma. So I'm bringing it into this new space to create more problems. So we redeployed back to the States. I tried to reintegrate. It wasn't until I had some great opportunities. I've been pretty lucky throughout the years. I had a friend who introduced me to a company called Kangaroo Express. It was a convenience store, if you remember. They're now under Circle K. And I became the face of their military pillar and leg. And then I became a consultant and did that for multiple companies. And I would travel around the country trying to connect with people to help them understand about veterans' problems. At the same time, we released a documentary called Halfway Home, and it was a story about myself and several other teammates to really connect and to bring awareness to that transitional stress and combat trauma. During all that, I wasn't doing the work to really get myself in a better place. I would continue with those poor behaviors, and obviously this is all retrospect. It wasn't until I made some more poor choices, and my fiance at the time, she left. She'd had enough because that's what I did. I hurt everybody around me. And it was at that moment when she had left, that was what triggered me into my rock bottom. When she had left, I felt like my world came apart. Nobody wanted me. I did this to myself. Again, I felt that hopelessness and, that I didn't belong anywhere. And the best thing to do was remove myself from the situation. So I had always thought about how to kill myself. I had several plans, but one in particular, as we were touring around the country, I would drive this truck and trailer as part of the demonstration for the events. And there was a particular route. It was rainy, and I was constantly loaded on something, whether it was alcohol or pills. And at that point, I knew I wanted to kill myself. So I got my truck and trailer up to speed, got it up to 70, and drove into a tree on purpose. And I just remember when I opened my eyes, I was gripping the steering wheel. I was so disappointed in myself. I felt like I couldn't even do this task. It wasn't until that moment I realized I had major problems. And it's, to me, looking back, it's kind of crazy. That's what it took. But it is. That's what happened. And so I was arrested. I was connected to the VA. The VA put me into a facility for 2 weeks to get clean, to try to reevaluate myself. There were, a couple admin barriers. And so it wasn't until a friend reached out to me and said, "Tommy, you're sick and tired of being sick and tired." I said, "Yes, sir, I am." He said, "Good. Pack your stuff. You're going to rehab." So he flew down, picked me up, flew me out to this place in Sundance, Utah called Cirque Lodge. And that's when I started to understand all the poor decisions I've made and understand all the layers of trauma that I need addressed. And that place was that safe space to evaluate those trauma issues and address them. And so I got clean and sober. And after rehab, it wasn't easy. I came out, I didn't have a place to live, so I had to establish a network. I had to establish housing. I had to establish employment. And yeah, I knew people, but I was so ashamed of what happened. I just kind of really hid myself. I knew I needed to work on myself. So in the first 13 months, I was in AA meetings, sometimes 4 and 5 times a day, doing whatever I could to stay sober, to really focus on keeping my mind and my heart clean and my conscience. And life continued. I still needed to bring in employment, and I didn't have a disability rating. And, I had to work through all these issues. Luckily, I was connected with people within the community, people that believed in me. It was like a weird opportunity in 2014. It was crazy. My first job right out of rehab was being a barback because nobody wanted to hire me. I went to Walmart, I went to Lowe's, several other corporations, but I always put it on them. What I know now is I wasn't employable. I was not ready. What I needed to do was go out there and get a little sweat equity and really find myself, rebuild who I was. My identity was not wrapped around my time in the service. I had to create what that identity was. So it wasn't until I met this guy named Blake Bourne, who was working at this organization called Charlotte Bridge Home, and he gave me a chance. He knew that I came with some trauma and some, additional things, but he saw the reward, and he took that risk on me. Not everybody's in the same boat. When you see a veteran, that doesn't mean that they're a risk. But for me, I was, and they evaluated that. And they hired me, and it gave me this opportunity to start building. So I think I've had 4 jobs from the time I left rehab till today. Currently, now I'm the director of philanthropy at Veterans Bridge Home. I couldn't imagine if I would have gotten hired at Walmart instantly. I don't know what would have happened, but it wasn't the right fit for me. I needed several things throughout my time, still trying to find myself, and since that time in rehab till today, I'm evolving every day, and I still need to work on myself. And I understand that every day brings new challenges, but it's all the things that I've learned along the way that have worked for me in those different seasons of my life, who have allowed me to continue to trend this way. At least I'm trending in the right direction. I wouldn't say my life is perfect, but man, it's a far cry from what it was yesterday. So I think Nicole's going to come back on, bring you a few questions, talk about some, doctor stuff. But we are so glad to be here. Thank you for listening to me carry on. And Nicole, the floor is yours.
Thank you for sharing your story of experience, strength, and hope with us. And in Tommy's story, you can see he talked about his transitions, many different transitions. And I just wanted to introduce you briefly to William Bridges' model of transition, because he brings attention to our response to transition. What is our experience? Everybody is different, but we all experience change in our lives, and endings and beginnings often come up together. Tommy's story is a story of resilience. There's science of resilience. If we're a human being living and breathing, we are resilient, and yet at different times in our lives, our tank is empty. Post-traumatic growth comes to mind as I hear Tommy's profound story, how he was broken open and in need of help, asked for help, was willing to take help offered, and this journey of growth, that experience of ourselves, a much higher level of functioning and knowing than we would have ever had before the trauma occurred. And I also hear in Tommy's story, just as he wrestled in his transition, like, what is the meaning of all of this? in the military, where our mission's clear. I love hearing about his very specialized mission was clear. He had a unit, a tribe that he went to war with, and worked to bring as many people home as possible. Though there were supports embedded in the unit, there are supports on an installation, and when he took off that uniform, and probably way before that, when he found himself in the hospital, not recognizing parts of himself, who am I? What's happening? This is the model of transition. How do we pause and pay attention and process our experience in response to what life happening, to family members dying, to losing our health and our ability to do certain jobs, missions. What does this mean about our identity? How do we relate to ourselves? And this is a process, and this is a new conversation, and it's a conversation that we need to be able to have with others, and yet a conversation that's so hard. I love David White's definition of self-knowledge. Self-knowledge is not fully possible, and yet we often think somehow we're going to arrive and get to know ourselves. In fact, I think creating a coherent narrative of ourselves takes time. But I love just this recognition of self-knowledge becomes the understanding of the self as a confluence between what is known and not known. And really, the invitation is, how do we build a robust capacity to, with the unknown, with mystery, to be able to live these very important questions of who am I right now, and what does this mean for me? So we're here to talk about well-being in the workplace, and I'd like you to imagine that Tommy is your new teammate, that Tommy is your new supervisee. I'd like you to imagine supporting Tommy in your workplace, and I want us to, I have a few questions for Tommy, and I'm going to invite him back, because I think we can learn what's most important to individuals who have had these, individuals who have experienced trauma, are on a journey of healing and recovery, and need cultures of support, cultures of care. I'd like us to really, as we go through this brief interview, kind of what are those key ingredients of a culture of care in the workplace. So Tommy, I welcome you back. Thank you. So I am curious, like in crisis, and in these moments of crisis, what type of care actually mattered the most to you?
So within crisis, I think what didn't happen, what I know now, it's a little harder to take myself back into that moment, just because, one, I wasn't prepared to listen to anything up until the moment that I needed immediate assistance. So as far as, oh, we could get to you sooner, probably not. You know, I personally, looking back on it, I needed to, you know, dig way down in those events, kind of needed to happen for me to wake up. Afterwards, it was people reaching out, like West Huddleston. You know, it was this network that I had built over the years, but didn't know I was doing. I had friends all over the country. And West, I didn't know directly. I knew through a friend. But because other people that checked in on me, that I had built this network, they knew I wasn't doing okay. And so they reached out and said, how can we help you? And come the time that I needed them, they showed up. Yeah.
I'm so glad.
Me too.
Yeah, this culture of care involves people who care about you, and Thank you. Fresh out of rehab, what kind of care and support did you need to kind of promote that state of learning, to promote a readiness to act to work, to promote kind of a connection with your strengths, especially after feeling like such a failure?
Yeah, I don't know if there was one solution.
Sure.
I know for me, back in that moment, rehab or AA was what kept me going. Like I needed to hear that other people were also struggling, that I wasn't alone, because for the longest time, I felt like I lived on an island. I felt like I wasn't a part of a greater community. And that's the thing that kept me in the military, that I loved the most. So I think, one, all the principles within AA, that serenity prayer is what stuck with me, just because I was a master manipulator, right? I wanted to control every conversation. I wanted to control every problem. I wanted to not give you this bit of information because I knew you were going to respond this way. And that's no way to go through life. So I think those core basics, I think it was starting from that clean slate, working the principles of AA, and not introducing anything to alter my mind, where I could have a clearer picture. The fog needed to clear, and I needed to be able to look in the mirror for the first time and feel like, all right, this is my opportunity to get it right. And I felt a responsibility because those people stepped in when I really needed them. And that was kind of the motivator. I didn't want to let them down. I definitely didn't want to let myself down. But I think that's what really helped me. I felt like I owed them to a point. And that's what got me through.
Yeah, I appreciate the structure of an AA program, and the support included in a sponsor in groups.
Yeah.
And I'm just aware that the AA Big Book has a chapter for employers. The people closest to us are noticing changes, and not only what do we think about alcoholism and alcoholism as a family disease, but how can we support those we know are suffering and invite them to a different path? Thank you for sharing. Tell us about your employment journey from that moment in a way that you were reborn and sober to now.
Man, it was a struggle. It was not what I thought it would be. It didn't go down the way I had pictured. I thought, I've done all these great things in the military. I did all these things post-deployment, building my own consulting network. And I just felt like this should be simple. I can get to work. I work hard. I'm smart. I can handle anything. Well, there's a lot more to the equation there. And so for me, I did, like I said, I had applied for, the typical. Well, I applied for many things, but Walmart we'll just use as the easy one. They had the big veterans hiring initiative at the time. And I just felt like that was an easy entry. I needed to get a job. I needed to start making money to help pay for things that, I didn't necessarily could provide for. I still had my kids. I had to pay child support and all these things. So when Walmart said no, I just felt, you're full of crap. Right? This is a marketing plea, but again, I wasn't prepared, and it was a blessing in disguise. That rejection built some of that resilience post-military, right? It wasn't until I landed that right job at Charlotte Bridge Home to be the, community outreach, and then after that, I think I became the executive director. Huge leap. I had no business being the executive director at the Independence Fund, but somebody saw something in me, and they believed in me, just like Blake did at Charlotte Bridge Home, Independence Fund. I started my own thing, kind of out of desperation, because I'd left the Independence Fund and wanted to do something on my own, wanted to be my own boss. But then I realized that's not a good place for me either. I needed other people. I needed somebody to really push me, that challenge me. I needed to be surrounded by people better than me, smarter than me, that, really helped me rise. And so when I learned Blake was the executive director, we circled back, and there was a culture there that was created that was transparent. The communication lines were open. It felt like family. And it had that sense of maneuverability / availability to let me do what I needed to do. I still had all these things trying to come out of. I made terrible decisions I'm still to this day paying for, financially, emotionally, physically. However, that's okay. I'm well equipped to do it. And I have an employer that accepts that sees that over time, it's not tomorrow, it's not 1 year, 2 years, whatever that time takes. It's that commitment that no matter what, within reason,
Sure.
That I'm supported.
Thank you for sharing. Are there any specific tools you can share with us that your employer or supervisor has used to just help facilitate your professional growth?
Oh man, I didn't. I think evaluations. So feedback to me, especially coming out of rehab, AA, I always want to get better. And feedback is important because, one, I invite it. Feedback is terrible when you don't invite it. So on our evaluations, I think it is really important, one, to set goals, to understand if you're reaching them, but how you're getting there professionally and personally. I think the way we do the evaluations is really important to me. I like hitting metrics. I like winning. I like competition. But I also like the inner dialogue of, okay, that's your job performance, but what about you professionally? Think outside of Veterans Bridge Home. How can we support you to be better you? Because if you're a better you, your work is going to speak for itself. And if you move on, great. That's okay. You help build the legacy of Veterans Bridge Home. So I think that those tools and that culture was really important for me.
Thank you for sharing. Lastly, I'd like to hear characteristics of a supervisor that helped you be open in an evaluation setting, for example.
Yeah, so very important. And a lot of people are uncomfortable with truth, honesty, that two-way communication, the ability to check in and be willing to accept what you hear. It's not always comfortable. It's not always easy. But, for me with Steve or Blake or any of my teammates, really, whatever I'm going through, I feel like I can communicate that and not be judged, or it's not going to hinder me. Now, there are some things, obviously, that will prevent you from maintaining your employment, rightfully so, but within reason. That ability to just connect with one another on their team, to be able to share whatever those experience, they still have a line of professional versus personal, but feeling like I can connect with you and tell you those things to assist me through whatever it is, and knowing that no matter what you bring to me, I'm here for you. That's what we're on this earth to do, is be here for each other. And that can happen in the workplace, especially with veterans and, for Veterans Bridge Home.
Yeah, thank you for sharing. We know how important friendships in the workplace actually are.
It's my tribe.
Absolutely. And I did say lastly, however, I would like to just quickly, as we transition to the next segment, 7 years sober. I'm curious how a world event like the pandemic has influenced your own mental health.
Yeah, the pandemic, it's hurt me a little bit. I'm not going to lie. Like, in the beginning, I thought, well, I've experienced war. I've been deployed. What else can you throw at me? But it's a different time. I'm 40 years old. I have different circumstances. And, for me, seeing everybody every day, feeling that family environment, we've done a good job connecting virtually, but it's just different. And so I moved to Fuquay Arena. So not having my Charlotte network, that made an impact. And as all of those barriers came into place, there was also a lot of blessings. And I think, to me, that was my opportunity to grow. and understand in the greatest struggle, I can find all the things that are helping me. Like I got to spend more time with my kids. What's wrong with that? I got to connect with other people that I wouldn't normally. Now it's like, okay, enough with the calls, enough with the technology. I find myself refraining from contacting other people. So, there's two sides to this all. I just know that for me personally, it hasn't been easy. Luckily, I've had some teammates that feel the same way, and we've been able to really connect and, support one another.
Not been easy at all. And we know that veterans, it's much easier to give help than it is to ask for help.
Of course.
And we know that sadly, in your case, catastrophic events had to happen in a way for you to be open to accepting help and even wanting it. So what is this practice of asking for help? Because we're going to talk about that a little bit in the end.
I mean, asking for help comes second nature to me now.
Does it really? I don't know.
I'm making that up. It's always going to be a hard thing for me. I'm very prideful. However, it's something from Nicole that she had taught me. It was my daily weather check. So checking in with myself, understanding what's happening within me, and evaluating, really being in tune what's going on. And I know my thresholds now. And so if I'm getting past those or getting anywhere in that danger zone, I have a network of people that I know at any point I can reach out, not just work, but anywhere. Asking for help is easy. See, Nicole, can I have $20?
No.
Darn.
Thank you. Thank you again for this conversation. And I will wrap us up here.
Great. Thank you.
I so appreciate having teammates like Tommy in the workplace. We do grow and learn together, and I hope that's what we're doing today with you. I know our time is limited, so I'm going to highlight a few things. Over and over again, Tommy mentioned the power of presence and relationship, and there's a science of presence. And it's these states of being curious and open and accepting and loving. And these states are impacted by mental illness. When we have addiction or depression or anxiety or these mental illness conditions, which can be states and episodes as well, this capacity to be open, curious is really difficult. Insights impacted, judgments impacted. So how do we cultivate this presence with ourselves and with each other? And there's a lot, when we talk about well-being in the workplace, I think it comes back to what are those practices that we can do individually and collectively that will nourish us and promote resilience and post-traumatic growth. I introduce you to the Healthy Mind Platter here. I am happy to send this along with the Neuro Leadership article from which it comes. But one of my favorite mentors worked in a collaborative of 30 different multidisciplinary clinicians, kind of thinking about what is the mind. And the mind it's embodied and it's relational. And so this Healthy Mind Platter is bringing attention to those activities, those behaviors that we need every day to promote optimal mind health. And so I just want to highlight these connecting practices. And I think one of those is asking for help. And I invite you to be present with yourself and ask yourself, in the midst coming off of a pandemic and reintegrating into the workplace, potentially into the community, creating a new normal. What is it that I need right now? David White, again, helps us understand the power and transformation that asking for help can be in our lives. And I really love how he puts it. It may be that the ability to know the necessity for help, to know how to look for that help, and then most importantly, how to ask for it, is one of the primary transformative dynamics that allows us to emancipate ourselves into each new epoch of our lives. We cannot birth ourselves. And our greatest vulnerability is the very door through which we must pass in order to open the next horizon of our lives. And this practice of well-being requires an intimate conversation with ourselves and those around us. As part of Mission Changing Lives Together, collaborative in this community, the United States has experienced a 30% increase in suicide over the last 25 years. How do we get after that? Well, prevention happens in the very context in which we play, live, and work. And I really appreciate the conversations you are having in your workplaces. So as Veterans Bridge Homes programs are aligned with what we all need as human beings: a purpose, employment, a community, a network of support, and a formal care network. Many businesses have these in the workplace, and many of them are collaborating with the community to provide options for people who are employees who are wanting to pay attention in a kind way and support their well-being. We are a part, we have care networks across the Carolinas that we support, learning from each other. And I just want to bring, it is a team of teams approach, suicide prevention and promoting health and well-being. And so as you look at this team of teams, right in the middle is the self. Service members, veterans, and families in this case, but right around are the people we live with, work with, play with. You are going to be the individuals who are noticing changes in one another. Pay attention. How do you invite that kind conversation? Most of us did not learn how to have it with ourselves and did not learn how to have it with others in our family of origin. So this is something that can be taught. We are delighted to have a training program to help corporations, to help organizations really grow in their capacity to have these kinds of conversations, which reduces stigma in the workplace and promotes health. Here are some of our partners in the community, and on the right-hand side, you'll see partners that offer intensive behavioral health, outpatient behavioral health, all the way to the left, where you've got communities and tribes who are offering opportunities to connect, social connectedness, opportunities to have coffee together. Mental Health of America offers conversations around mental health with peer support specialists who have their own story of resilience and hope to share, which can be a lovely way to start new conversations in your workplace. And I just wanted to bring attention to some crisis connections in the community. Many businesses and employers, this work should not be done alone. Mental health is a continuum. Our hope is that you're paying attention to it daily, but many of us, like Tommy, get to a place where we haven't been paying attention. We are disconnected and we find ourselves in crisis. And these are our partners who can work with you and your teams to identify the best resources for recovery. And finally, I can't help but ask, part of having these conversations and getting to know people is understanding who they are, what identities they hold. And you can hear and see, and I didn't identify as a soldier myself until I deployed. So this ongoing conversation about our identity and kind of self-knowledge and kind of, who are we? Do you know what do you know about the people on your team, number one? And do you know the military and veteran families in your midst? I invite you to start a conversation with yourself, to pay attention to your whole health, not just your work and not just focus time, but all of those other areas, play, time in and reflection time, the other parts of the Healthy Mind Platter. Leaders, lead by example, pay attention to your own mind health, invite your first line managers, to engage in their own health, we're going to be better equipped to have these conversations at the lowest level when we do. Start identifying the military and veteran families in your midst. You can ask a simple question: have you or someone you loved ever served in the military? And we invite you to join the Governor's Challenge by taking 3 basic trainings. One is about military culture, and 2 are about suicide prevention. This is the entry-level training. We'd love for you to participate and earn a challenge coin. Please reach out to us if you have any questions or concerns. I have gone over, so I will say goodbye. It's been a delight to be with you. It would have been better if I had been able to see your faces, but I look forward to meeting you in person. Thank you for your presence with us today.
All right, Beth, we should be ready for the Q&A for our keynote speakers.
Okay, great. Chris, can you hear me?
Yes, I can.
Perfect. Okay, I am. Can you hear that? Because I've got something else going on. Hold on here.
Embarrassed that I have a career.
Hold on just a minute.
I talk
I'm
about
trying
things
to
like
turn off my whatever that is.
The next video,
you hear
likely.
Okay, that's probably what it is. So, how do I get out of that?
Are not yet
Multi-video.
standard in our
All right,
organizations,
hold
and
on.
they should be, and we know that.
Maybe I shut that up. Okay. All right. So again, thank you so much, Nicole and Tommy. This was fantastic, and I really, really appreciate the rawness of your message. I think it resonates with so many of us in so many different ways. So again, thank you so much. I know we were going to open it up for questions. I don't know that. So because I'm the host, right, I get to be front in line. So Pat, unless you stop me, I'm gonna go ahead and ask my own question. So this is my party. So no, I'm teasing. But you know, one of the things that you share is you know, when we think about the employers, right, that are represented on this call, and I know so many times you know, there may be a manager that has an employee or a direct report that is struggling, you know, whether it's the performance is being impacted. They know that there's a struggle happening, and it could be substance abuse, right? It could be post-traumatic stress. I mean, there's so many variables to that. What would your advice be to a manager that maybe senses there's something not quite right? And we have employee assistance programs so many times, right, that go unutilized by so many. But do you have any advice for that manager that may be really seeking to support that employee, but doesn't quite know how to approach that?
Thank you for that question, Beth. I mean, we didn't get into, there are a variety of tools. We mentioned one, which is kind of the evaluation process. And as you know, that's a great conversation when you go over metrics and talk about performance results, because oftentimes managers are going to see a slip in performance, whether it's absenteeism, whether it's, you know, folks being inconsistent in attendance, you know, or just not engaged in a certain way. And so I would say, like, number one, I think a good best practice is really, you know, meeting with your people, building that relationship so it's easy to kind of ask about well-being. I mean, separate those performance conversations from your conversations about the whole person. And you know, because I think that's really important. And then I think the third conversation, so you have performance conversations, you have well-being conversations, and you make that normal as a normal One thing Tommy didn't say, and he was sharing in this presentation, but in our practice round, I mean, he talked about his supervisor checking in with him daily during this pandemic. I mean, that's a routine that they have. It wasn't, and in that conversation, when we know people, we can have those conversations much easier. And then I think the mentoring conversation about career growth and best fit is another conversation that can be scheduled. So you have these different times blocked out for these different kinds of conversations. There are supports for managers. So, talk to a subject matter expert or behavioral health consultant like myself. I may not know your culture as well, but I know mental health, and it can absolutely help, you and any of us who have done this in the workplace can help you understand the presentation and maybe, brainstorm questions you might want to ask or things you might need to know as you determine kind of the next step. It's important that this conversation is grounded in support. So like the big book that I referenced, the chapter on for employers, has a beautiful conversation from a manager who is like, look, alcohol is a problem. Do you want help? And I'm here to support you. I will support you going to treatment. But you have to want it. And this has to be, this has got to be something you want, because I'm not going to cover for you anymore. I think first-time managers especially kind of get into that trap of they think caring is covering, or they think caring is not noticing. And I think if you come from a place of care, and honestly, you're leading by example and doing your best to take good care of yourself and prepare yourself for these conversations, like just paying attention in and of itself in a kind way can bring about change. And then inviting people to presenting options.
Yeah, no, you know what, you raised such a good point. And here, I want to sit back on that, what you just said, right? Which is that covering for, right? Or because at the end of the day, it is the individual's choice, right? To move beyond and to get the help as offered. I want to sit on that for a minute and expand that, okay? Not just to substance abuse and not to just this topic, but guys, this is about accommodations across the board for individuals with disabilities, okay? We as individuals with disabilities, and again, many of you know, right, I have a vision problem. When there are issues, when there are whatever it is, performance issues, we owe it to our employees to have those honest conversations to say, I understand, how can I support you? Right? Because at the end of the day, the performance is not there, whether it's a physical disability or a mental health issue, whatever it is, how can I support you to be successful? Right? Because right now I see there's some challenges, right, related to performance. That again expands beyond just a substance abuse issue. And so often managers are reluctant to step into that because they want to cover, or they want to look the other way and say, well, they've got a disability, right? So I shouldn't expect much, right? Or I shouldn't, and that's not the case, right? So we want to be really clear on that. We have to have that level of accountability for sure. So I'm going to pause for a minute because I know I could talk forever. Are there any other questions?
There's one from someone. Do we have any recommended training that would be beneficial to a company's EAP program to give that EAP a better understanding of the unique needs for veterans?
PsychArmor has some great training for employers and counselors in the workplace. So I encourage you to visit PsychArmor's website.
Great. Can you maybe put that in the chat by chance when you have an opportunity?
And also, I don't know if my slides will be shared, but there's a whole list of trainings
Absolutely.
and resources for employers, and I would start there.
Perfect. Absolutely. That's fantastic. And then Tommy, I do have one additional question in terms of just the importance. We talk about community a lot, right? And you've shared, again, your network of supports that you had evolved over your career in the military and outside. Just how important that community was to both your recovery and kind of your ability to move forward. When we think about companies, right, many of the companies have employee resource groups, right, that are focused on individuals with disabilities, but many also have the veterans, right, or military spouses. How important is that community, and what role do they play in again, from that employer perspective, that employers are offering opportunities for connection to community?
That's a great question. I think the ERGs play a significant role in these companies. We work with them on a daily basis, and to have for anybody a group of people that you're connected to that share a similar type of experience, where you can come and do activities together but get to learn from one another, is critical. I think, and it kind of goes into your first question and to this, I think what I've seen over the last several years in the corporate world, most of the time we don't spend time getting to know our employees. It's all business, all up front, and there's this serious disconnect. So when something's off, you don't know if it's off or not because you don't know the person.
Mm-hmm.
What we value here is when we have a staff member come on, a great example, we just hired a new associate. She works with me, and I was asking her a bunch of questions, and they were very centered around getting to know her. And her spouse was like, what are they doing? They don't do this in the corporate world. Like, why did they want to know your favorite music and what's important to you? Like, these are common human interactions that somehow, some way, we've separated from what's important for connecting. How can we be an amazing team and have product results and deliver on goals as a team if we're not connected? It goes far beyond just the actual training of the job. I think the ERGs are the centrifuge to that connection. Like, that's the chance to really get to know each other. It's just what the ERGs are doing with it, and what is that opportunity besides just showing up at a golf tournament or some of the basic things that some of the ERGs are doing. What we found the best success is when those ERGs are coming together and volunteering, right? You find yourself by serving others. That's a saying somewhere, of course, but the opportunity to bring people together and connect, that's where the ERGs make the difference.
It is so true. And I think if there's one thing that I have seen as a benefit, and I'm with you. I mean, I think you shared some of the challenges with COVID, right, in the last year. But man, there's some positives that have come out of that. And like you said, whether it's spending more time with family, right, and really forcing us to reprioritize and put things, first, like caring for ourselves in some respects, as opposed to just work and work and work, but reconnecting with family, with our kids, even understanding more what's happening in schools, right? With, how many people have become teachers overnight, right? Where we're really focusing back on those relationships that matter. What I've seen companies get really good at is just what you said, is it's not just about work. It's about doing those check-ins, so that if you have a team call, and, routinely we have team calls, but spending some time on the front end of that call to say, how's everybody doing? And then being silent and being okay with being silent, and let people just share. right? What's going on? Building relationships. And we, for a long time in corporate America, right, have taken that out of the mix because it's about work, it's about efficiency and productivity. And what I have seen really enhanced through this COVID experience is the importance of reaching out and spending time with your team and giving people permission to step away from their computer and go for a walk in the middle of the day, right? Taking an opportunity to go work out if that's what you do. Listen to your favorite song. Take a walk around the block. Go out and just sit in the sunshine at lunchtime, whatever it is. Man, we've got to get back to that because that's what's important about us and who we are, because then when we are taking care of ourselves, we can come back and more fully engage, right, at the tasks at hand, which is what the companies, are looking for in terms of productivity as well. So
that's right. And I will say on the training side, and this is not a shameless plug for Veterans Bridge Home, because this is what we do. Going into a company, if you have an ERG or veteran group or for your employees, we can customize some of this training. Psych Armor is a great place, but it's not really customizable. It's more that military cultural competency. But also when you run across a veteran you don't know what to do with, that's what we're here for. A great example, there's a distribution company that had a veteran who had several needs, great employee, he's just hit a few barriers. And they called us and said, we don't know what to do. Can you help us? That's what we do. We're here as a community resource to help you solve problems, to keep that veteran engaged because they're a critical asset in the community. So feel free to reach out, lean on us. This is what we get paid to do.
Awesome. Fantastic.
Beth, we have another question from Sima to probably follow us up.
I'm unmuted now, so thank you, Pat.
Hey, Sima.
Hey, Beth, how are you?
Good. Sima's with SAS, and she's one of our board members. So welcome, Sima.
Thank you. So thank you to Nicole and Tommy for sharing. And I did want to say I knew your former colleague, Jim Prosser. What a great man and a loss for all of us. He was with Veterans Bridge Home, so I had the pleasure of working with him. And just a good man and a loss for all of us. But so my comment was for you, Nicole. Didn't know if you were familiar or had any experience with using or treating any veterans, because I've seen several documentaries and just lots of things about MDMA research and for veterans with PTSD.
Thank you for the question. It is very good one. And honestly, I have seen some of the research, but I haven't treated anyone using that, first line kind of approach. So I'm not going to actually be able to comment in a helpful way, but thank you for the question.
Right. I've seen where there's some ongoing. I think the VA is doing some research now. I think there's TAPS. I couldn't find the link, but I can share it. Through the VA, you can do it. But I saw some really great results for PTSD with some veterans, 3 treatments, and they felt like they were healed. So it was kind of remarkable. So.
And I would say that any of those trials, I love it that the VA is in DoD, Department of Defense. I mean, they are on the front lines doing some of this experimental research, and so it's great to learn. It's great to have this data, and it's not widely available, I guess, to the masses. And I would also say that I am suspect of all of a sudden it's gone, because the symptoms are controlled through a variety of ways. But it is making sense of your story. And as you heard Tommy's story or anybody's story of trauma, veteran or not, creating a coherent narrative does take time. And so I'll sign off.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, it's dealing with it and processing your story, your issues, because I feel like veterans don't get to deal with their trauma. So it's just keep moving on. And also, so the North Carolina Governor's Working Group for Veterans, they just released a new tool, How We Reach coaching tool, dealing with suicide preventable. So I was going to share that link. I shared it with Pat. I wasn't sure if you were familiar with that or if you participate in any of the Governor's Working Group.
I do. And in fact, I'm happy to share a resource that, in fact, it may be the resource you're referencing. I didn't get it through the Governor's Working Group, but there is a working group that has put together Prevents, actually, which is a national, President's Task Force in 2020 put out some resources for employers. And there's one that's really good that will help employers create their own plans in the workplace. And I can share that with the group. It's excellent. And then they have this Reach tool. It's an app that can help you walk through crisis intervention and those types of things.
They just released that. Yeah, I shared it, and Pat was going to share How We Reach coaching tool. Yeah. So that's all, but I appreciate what you shared. And do you use any other like mindfulness training or anything like that in your practice?
Yes, absolutely. I think that's part of the power of attention and broadening awareness gives us the capacity to make, to shift behavior. And we know how powerful it is, even shifting the mind, and how behavior and mind shifts can actually change the expression of our DNA. And so creating these new connections just requires constant attention. And so there are a lot of different mindfulness practices that I definitely incorporate into my own practice, and in the workplace is a great place to introduce folks to these practices that can help them on a day-to-day basis.
Thank you so much.
Just being cognizant of time, we're about ready to run to our run table.
Perfect. So let's do that. So again, thank you so much, Simon, for your questions. And just as a reminder, we are going to make the slides available, the PowerPoint that Dr. French shared. We're going to make all that available after today's event. So look for that. And we'll also do our very best to provide the videos as well.
We will.
So yes. And so as we move into the next video, Chris, can you walk folks through? I know that we've had some folks join just to ensure that everyone knows how to access the video. And then I will go ahead and we'll play the video, I guess. And Pat, then I will introduce the roundtable. Is that how?
That's how we're going.
Okay, perfect. So Chris, if you walk folks through the video, that would be fantastic.
You bet. They're in the WebEx application. Sorry, this isn't available for mobile platforms. WebEx application, there should be a multimedia viewer that is at the bottom right-hand corner of your screen. The updated video is now, it should be present in your multimedia viewer. And if you click it, you should see the beginning with Blaise Foster.
Right.
Good morning, everyone. My name is Blaise Foster, and I'm originally from Western Pennsylvania in a town called Monroeville, which is about 20 miles east of Pittsburgh. I moved to the North Carolina in January 9th to be exact. I mostly moved here for a fresh start. So I was fortunate enough within a month of being in North Carolina of finding employment with Secure Care Self-Storage, and I've been employed with them since. As far as them being adaptive to what I need, I was born with dwarfism, the common, with achondroplasia, which is the most common form of dwarfism. And so I stand about 4'6". So to reach high things, it's a little bit more tough. So what I really liked how they responded to my physical disability is they asked me what I needed. They didn't just assume I needed certain things. The area manager specifically was like, you tell us what you need. You walk around the facility. There's something you need, just let us know. We're not going to try to think that you need this when you really don't. So I really liked how the area manager did that for me. And at the end of the day, I only needed about 3 things, which weren't too expensive. I mean, it was probably $30 for everything on Amazon. So it worked. It's been working out well. It's definitely a comfortable place to work, and it's very accepting. So I've been lucky in that aspect. I've always been involved in fitness ever since as a young child. So I really had never seen fitness as like a type of meditation, but it is to me. And I really didn't experience that until the pandemic, until my gym was taken away from me, which was something I always took for granted and something I would spend an hour, 2 hours a day at, 3-4 times a week. And when that's taken away, you really don't know how much that's a part of your life until it's completely taken away. So what I've always told people is I might benefit from like traveling and being on the powerlifting team, but most importantly, it gives me mental clarity. It gives me a good mental health of reminding myself of the things that are within my control other than things that are outside of my control. And that gives me peace of mind at the end of the day, because there's a lot of things we all can't control. It's going to happen. It's inevitable. But to be able to concrete and take the task at hand of doing the things that you can control really gives you peace of mind and gives you momentum throughout life. Because I feel progress is the best motivation. Once you improve on something, once you've been grinding for something for so long and you didn't have it, but then you eventually get it, it's like, oh, okay, on to the next chapter. Let's take on another challenge, and it just keeps the ball rolling. And the outside of the abs and the muscles, that's cool and all, but it's more along the lines of what it benefits me mentally. It's been honestly a savior for me as far as fitness and exercise, and I just happen to become good at it, good enough to be a part of a Team USA team. But I think what it's done for me outside of the sport is definitely something that I can't take. I don't want it to go unnoticed, because it's definitely benefited me a lot. So outside of my corporate job, I do one-on-one personal training, and I also do fitness groups as well. But what I like about my one-on-one training is I'm working out with people. Most of my clients are people with dwarfism, and what's great about this experience, and this is just the beginning of what I'm trying to build, but we're able to relate on things that most people can't relate to, like the anxiety that comes with going into a gym, like a corporate gym, or not having the machines be able to fit you properly, or the stairs and the laughs of going to a corporate gym. And it's nice to be able to relate to someone and make them realize that it doesn't have to be like that. You can get a great workout anywhere. You don't have to go to a gym. You could do it in your home, in your bedroom, in your kitchen, wherever you want. And you don't need to take much time. You don't need to work out for an hour or 2 hours. You can get a good workout in 10, 15 minutes. So that's been one of the big things that I've liked about my program so far. And it's, obesity is tough in throughout this country for all people. But it's really bad for people with physical disabilities, because it's a more of a sedentary type lifestyle that some are kind of confined to, but most importantly, some don't know that there's another side, that they can do something. Like, they're always told what they can't do, but there's things that they can do, and let's focus on that. If there's even if it's just 2, 3, 4 things that you can do, we could work off that and make it so you're active in some sort of way. What I liked throughout this process is having to adapt and having to really think and strategize and sit down with each client, because every client's different in some type of way. You know, I have clients from a 16-year-old athlete to a 55-year-old teacher. You know, so it's, you know, the plans are definitely different. Their goals are different. But at the end of the day, they just want to be better physically. And what I try to really preach to them is the benefits, not only physically, but mentally, that it does for an individual with just moving, just actively moving, you know, 3 to 4 days a week. So that's been working out well. And then as far as with the group instructing classes, it's I'm partnered with a company called One Kakana, which we do a hand cycle type workout. So it's like kind of like Peloton, but with, you know, with the bikes. But with us, it's more strictly hand cycles. So we have individuals of all abilities can do it, and it's a very underrated workout. I mean, being on the hand cycle for 30 minutes can get you a good workout. So we have clients from, you know, cerebral palsy, spinal bifida, to dwarfism, to we have a few clients with one arm. I mean, so it just varies. And what's nice is it brings people from all abilities together. And just what I like about it is the conversations we have before and after class. And we're just able to sit down and talk, and, you know, for 5-10 minutes, and just talk about, you know, bring some type of community to it, which is something I really enjoy. So I do that about 2 days a week with the group, but also with that company, One Kakana, they offer boxing, they offer yoga classes and meditation and strength training classes. So it's a pretty good platform that I recommend that people check out.
Hello, everyone. My name is Ron Clark. I work with Camino Services as a community service manager. I just recently started that opportunity, and I'm looking forward to expanding that and to helping people like myself in the community. If you would Google me, which some people have, they would say different things like Ron is on the board of National Alliance for Mental Illness. He's been to Capitol Hill a couple of times to speak to the senators and lawmakers about the changes needed for people in substance use disorders and mental health challenges. They would say he helps in the homeless service networks. He's a board member there. He's looking forward to, if in the Charlotte area, or being on the board of directors for Roof Above, which governs all the unsheltered individuals in the county these individuals do experience some substance use disorders and mental health. They have a lot of adjectives that say it, but what they don't say is that Ron had an active addiction to drugs and was incarcerated in several different states. What they don't say is that Ron has several other disabilities. He has a diagnosis of mental health with depression and anxiety, and he's under proper medication, which helps him manage that process. They don't talk about that. But those are the facts of my life. For 21 years of my life, I was in active addiction. I was in homelessness, chronic homelessness in some cases. And chronic, by definition, is saying that an individual is sleeping in a place not meant for human habitation. And during those times, I had a lot of mental health challenges. I call that the wreckage of my past. But today, I have the honor and the privilege of not only helping myself, but assisting people like me and breaking down that stigma that a person who have some diagnosis or mental health situations is going to always be like that. And what I do is there's millions of people like me, to include Cami, that our goal is to use our experience, strength, and hope to help someone not named Ron Clark. That's what my primary purpose in life is today, and it has taken me a long way. What they have done is we've moved the goalposts. We realized that people with mental health challenges and substance use disorders or whatever intellectual developmental disabilities were people. If you would ask me prior to just walking up on me and says, what is your name? I wouldn't say my name is bipolar. I wouldn't say my name is depression. I would say, my name is Ron and I'm living with. And so if we could learn to adjust our thought and change our messaging, the person is not that diagnosis. They're a person first, and we have a lot of strength. We call it disabilities. I like to get rid of that first three letters, the DIS. We are people with abilities, and we can expand those abilities and be just as productive in the community, sometimes even more. What better person would you want assisting someone with mental health challenges than someone who's had a diagnosis of mental health challenges and using that experience, strength, and hope? What better person would you want to help someone who's had some substance use disorders? That's the new addictive language. We're not calling people addicts and drug heads and winos. They are people first. They are people with a substance use disorder. That's what we are. And we want to expand on educating the community. But getting back to what I was talking about is, what better person would you want to assist someone than someone who has had that same or similar experience, and to guide that person to a more manageable place in their life? And the same with individuals who have family members with intellectual developmental disabilities. We have a lot of strengths that have been overlooked for years. And today we want to use that to move the needle and to help other people just like us. No, I'm not saying that we should replace the clinician and the doctors and nurses. That's not the point. But we can use that strength that we've gained from our lived experience. It's very valuable. No, you can't learn that in the classroom or in chapter 5 or a certain book or anything. It's something that we have lived, and it's very valuable, and we can connect with that person in a way that medical science cannot. But hand in hand, if we join those two efforts together, we can get some really good outcomes. And that's what we're looking for. That's that evidence-based practice that people are talking about so much. As I stated earlier, I've had several years, many years, 21 years of active use. I'm not cured, healed, or fixed. People like me, we suffer from a disease that's designed to kill us if we don't get into this thing called recovery and stay there. And so on March 15, 2010, I crawled out from under a bridge on Tryon Street in Charlotte, North Carolina. It was, and I can remember everything about it. It was between 7:30 and 8 o'clock in the morning. And what I did is I surrendered. And I turned to the professionals and I says, I can't do this alone. And they guided me and gave me proper medication, proper treatment, and things of that nature. And they told me that I only had to change one thing in my life. And that was everything, because the way I was wired at that time, all I lived to use and used to live. And then when I got on the proper medication and I began to connect some days in recovery, one day at a time, a lot of positive things began to happen. And I'm not unique to that. I don't have the blueprint on it. It's not, I don't have a monopoly on it. There's millions and millions of people like me and Cami out in the community that are living productive lives, just like whatever quote unquote normal is. That's another webinar if we ever want to get to that part. But what I'm saying is we have strengths that we can use to assist other people to get to a more manageable place. Some of the things that can help us as an individual, also if the management or individuals, co-workers, or just the community are educated on, are some of the things that we go through that can keep us between the line, to keep us balanced. Some of those things are like sometimes we get triggered without our permission. Life will just show up in the relationship, finances, employment at the job and everything. And we have to deal with these issues so that we can be more productive. And I call those things triggers. A trigger is an outside element, something that happened that affects us. And if we know that, and if we know or educated about that, if the whole community is aware of that, we can get through those things. A trigger could be something that happens on TV, something, a loud noise. It could be something that happened in the workplace, a significant other, or even a person you don't even know can trigger us and make us feel a certain way. And we can adjust those feelings if we have these things called tools. Tools could be like calling Pat, or calling Cammie, or Chris, or someone, or journaling and exercising or anything. These are just some of the few ways that we can use to get past certain moments. Early warning signs, sometimes things can happen. We'll see the train coming down the road or something that's going to bother us, and we're not prepared for it, or we try to just wait it out. If we could act on those things, we could be more manageable. And all of these things I'm talking about can happen in the workplace. We're not asking for us to be just set aside the different things the challenges that we have, but to make some reasonable accommodations so that we can be productive in the community and fulfill some of the dreams that we have. And I use that as an example because I'm not anonymous. When I walk in the room, people know that I've had years of addiction. I teach it throughout the state and the county. I'm not a secret or anything. People they're all aware of who I am at my workplace, in my family life, in the community, anywhere I go. I'm not ashamed of it. I had to go through some things to help people. I wish some of the things in the records of my past has not happened. But I've used those things, I've educated myself to make those things an asset. And there's millions of people like me doing that. And to the employer, what that means is I know that I'm living with some challenges in my life. And as long as I manage them properly, I can be the example that people like myself, I have to be punctual. I have to be dependable. I have to be accountable, because I feel like I'm representing people like myself 100% of the time. Now, it's not like I'm putting a lot of pressure on myself. It's easy to do because I love what I do. It's my passion. That's in my DNA. And I'm not alone with this. We're spreading the movement all across the United States and the local area. Please join us. There's ways that you can get involved. But at the end of the day, what I'm trying to say is I have to educate myself on the things so I can be productive in the community and be the example to the employers, to individuals who I'm around, that people with substance use disorders and mental health challenges will people first, and given the proper opportunity, we can be productive in the community and live very structural and fulfilled lives.
My name is Cammie Turcotte. I'm the manager of certification and supplier engagement with Disability In. I've been with the organization since early 2012. And I would say that disability inclusion is something that's really been embedded through my not only professional life, but my personal life. I have a few members of my family who have anxiety, depression, as well as addiction. So I'm very familiar with when we talk about mental wellness, how that looks like not only in a professional space, but in a personal space, and how that affects kind of the dynamic of families, including children, significant others, and grandparents, and all that good stuff. Mostly in my day job, what I do is really navigate the business world with small business owners that have disabilities. So I spend most of my time really helping them kind of connect the dots, ensure that they have, tools and resources to help leverage them. and reach their success or their goals. And that can look like many different things, anything from obtaining potential education, higher education, so maybe executive education courses, all the way down to really kind of helping somebody edit their capability statement. So Mental Health Awareness Month probably means a little bit different to me because of my personal and professional settings. But, you know, to me, it's a very unique subset of disability, and the fact that mental wellness is really considered an invisible disability, right? So when we look at it, there are some what we would consider pros and cons to people that fall within this dynamic of disabilities. It's something that can go around unnoticed. So if you're applying for a job, or you're a business owner, or you're a student and you have a mental disability, you know, others around you may not notice that. They may not understand what your unique challenges are. So there's not necessarily the forced issue of self-identification. But the other side of that is that somebody can be struggling and you really would not be able to visually identify that, right? And understand what their struggles are. So in my opinion, this is really one of the hardest areas of people with disabilities to really kind of understand and address, because there really isn't that visualization that you'll see with somebody who's a wheelchair user, or maybe somebody who's a blind individual who uses a service animal or a cane. And so really kind of helping those individuals come out and identify to ensure that they have a successful outcome, either personally or professionally, is extremely important, especially given the times we're currently living in with COVID. You know, everybody moving into this virtual world has been great for a lot of reasons, but being cut off from the rest of society, their loved ones, their support system is extremely difficult. And I personally have been dealing with that in my household. So I know it's got to be challenging to others out there who are dealing with it as well. And then, you know, really looking at wellness at work and how is that important to disability and inclusion in employment. Kind of going back to what I mentioned above, I feel that it's critical that employers really ensure that their employees have the accommodations they need to ensure that those employees, you know, when they have a need around their disability, that they're able to go and seek that out in a comfortable space, in a comfortable format, or if they need what I call a TV timeout and they need to back away from their professional life for a little bit, even if it's an hour or a day or a week, that they have the ability to do that so that they can reset and unplug and give themselves a chance to recharge their mental wellness, right? So just ensuring that there's a comfortable space that they can reach out to their employers, whether that's somebody in HR, somebody in accommodations, and really having those employers to really not just allow in accommodations, but bring forth a sense of culture, right? So that the individuals who have to step forward and self-identify don't feel like they're going to be crucified or there's going to be a stigma attached to it if they come forth and self-identify, to have access to these resources. That would really help ensure their overall well-being in the long run. And then also understanding that, you know, many of these people may not have been formally diagnosed. Maybe they don't understand that they have anxiety or depression or a multiple personality disorder or learning disability, whatever it is. So again, providing that forum and that culture within their company, and it doesn't have to be a huge company. Small companies and medium-sized companies can do this as well. Because I think when we all have that space that we feel comfortable in, we're able to bring not only our best selves to work, but our whole selves to work. And you're going to find that people are typically much more productive, happier, and just an all-around better employee. So looking at some of the life experiences that you know, having an employer support me to navigate difficult times through my personal life. I'm currently going through one of those periods, unfortunately. So I would say my position on this panel is probably, couldn't have, unfortunately, better timing for me, but for you guys, you know, I think there's a lot of things that I'm personally going through that I can kind of speak to. You know, navigating, going through a divorce with an individual who has addiction issues is extremely challenging. And, you know, it's not something that just affects me personally. I mean, I'm blessed in the fact that I have an employer and I work for an amazing organization and I have supportive colleagues and a boss that understands that this is not a choice that I'm making lightly and that it does affect my whole self. And sometimes that bleeds over into my professional life, whether I want it to or not. So for me, I've been extremely lucky in the fact that while I work for an amazing organization, I also work for amazing people. And so I'm able to step back when I need to and really kind of take a breath and refocus, or if I need a day off here or there to focus on my children or things that I have going on with the situation, I'm able to do that without any type of negativity, if you will. So for me, that's been a huge blessing. I think when you look at the big picture, and that's even outside of my situation, having patience and the forethought to understand that as humans, we're not perfect and that life can be very messy sometimes. You know, for those that are kind of looking from the outside in, understanding that, you have to have some perspective. Unless you've walked in somebody else's shoes, you can't understand what they're going through. So maybe just be a little patient, understand that, they're doing the best they can, and maybe ask them how you can help them. Is there something you can do to help them get through their day? Or if you're at work, is there something you can help them kind of lift off their shoulders? And I believe that kind of one of the best things that COVID has brought out is really allowing employees to have flexible schedules. While it's great that we're all at home and we don't have to sit in traffic to get to the office, for many of us, that's carrying 2 or 3 roles. If you're taking care of children, if you're taking care of your parents or extended family members, and you're trying to be a teacher and do your full-time job, it's a lot. It's a lot. So I believe that having a flexible schedule, allowing employees to really embrace, as long as they're getting their stuff done, they're showing up for their meetings and doing what they need to do, that it's okay if you need to step away from your computer for an hour, if you need to take a walk to get some vitamin D, and really just have a mental health break, without any type of guilt, is extremely important and goes a very long way. And again, I think that those types of environments allow somebody to bring their best self to work. So really just kind of taking everything with stride. And then looking at, things that I do personally to really maintain and help support my mental and physical health. Like Blaze, I have a few outlets. So for me, I've always worked from home, even pre-COVID. And so for me to very much walk away from work, because I'm very type A, and kind of close the computer and walk away from it for the day it is an extremely hard thing to do, because I always feel like there's something I need to get done. But I've gotten better about learning how to walk away from work when I need to. Set it down, take a break, and go back to it when I'm ready, mentally in a better place to handle my task at hand. I try to make this a priority to unplug and really walk away from it when it's time to, and then realize if I come back with a clear head later, I'm going to be able to, accomplish more and prioritize at a better rate than I currently am. Like Blaze, I also work out a lot. I enjoy making sure that I'm at the gym or outside at least 5 days a week, unless I'm on travel or I'm sick. It's an incredible outlet. And I think, like he mentioned, it's not just physical, it's mental. And for me, it's been an outlet for most of my adult life. And I feel like right now, especially where I'm at in my life, it's something that I have to have in order to function as my best self. And that means professionally and personally. I have 2 boys and I love them to pieces, but juggling their quality of life and everything else can be a challenge. So I really try to check in with them every day, and letting them know that they're loved, and that I understand that they have their own unique challenges. They're 12 and almost 14, so they're going through challenging years in their lives, and helping them really embrace, what those challenges are. One of my kids does have anxiety, and so he gets wound up very quickly. So kind of just talking him down off the ledge a lot of times is something that takes a good amount of time, whether it's in the morning before we have to get to the bus or in the evening. So again, working with him to overcome and embrace that, yes, you're going to have challenges today and it's okay to have challenges, but we're going to get through it. And this is how I can help you get through it, so that he knows he's not alone in that. And then probably the biggest part of my life outside of my boys that is just very important to me is I'm a huge animal lover. I love dogs. And I foster and rescue a lot of dogs, especially special needs animals. So over the past couple of years, we've brought in about 25 dogs in our house through foster until they've gotten adopted or rescue situations. and it's something I'm extremely passionate about. Like I said, I typically focus on special needs dogs or those with severe medical issues. Right now, we have 4 of our own, and we have a paraplegic lab who I love to pieces. She's just the apple of my eye, and she's an amazing girl. And I think the great thing about dogs, and don't get me wrong, humans are amazing too, is that they have this resiliency. So I have a paraplegic dog who while she can't use her back legs, she doesn't know that she's any different than anybody else. She lives her same life, her best self, just like all my other dogs do. We don't treat her any differently. We let her do all the things the other dogs do as long as it's safe for her. And she just shows up and loves to go out and play, you know? So I think as humans, sometimes we forget that it's okay to be different. It's okay to have challenges, and it's okay to have a bad day or bad days or bad weeks or bad months. We're all going to have them, but trying to kind of look above and beyond to find the positives in those. And really just live your life 110%. All of our days are numbered. So finding the way that you can function and function in a positive way, and really just kind of absorb the positivity when you can, so that when you go through those tough times, you have something in a positive note to focus on, right? And really kind of living that type of mentality as much as you can. And it's not easy. It's definitely not easy. It's okay to have bad days, but for me, those are my things that really kind of keep me sane and keep me positive most of the time. I do have bad days, but really allowing me to kind of focus on the bigger things and the important things in my life, like my children, like my job, that really help me kind of work through my day 1 hour at a time. So I talk to most of our small business owners, even before they apply, to kind of explain what the benefits are, why it may or may not be a good fit for them, because it's not a good fit for everybody, honestly. But allowing them to understand what they can leverage, what our resources are, and how they can really benefit from our certification and our services. And I like to think, I'm not perfect, but I like to think that most people, I try to make them feel comfortable. I work with individuals with all different disabilities. I have a child with a disability, and for me, I treat them just like anybody else, right? I'm just going to talk to them like they're my friend on the street, and we're just having a light conversation. And once I get to know them a little bit better, and we're talking more about engaging aspects of how they need to be doing business, that's going to be different for every business owner, just based on what they do, who they are. But learning how to kind of take their strong personality skills, if you will, so what they're really good at, right? And really hone in on those and help them kind of fine tune how we make the approach. And a lot of times I'll do introductions for them, and then I'll turn it over to them. And I've already kind of schooled them on, like, okay, this is what you want to do. This is what you want to present. You don't want to do this. You want to do this. So really kind of just fine tuning it for them. And I do that a lot for our small businesses.
Beth, I think we should be good to go.
Yep.
Or Pat, sorry.
Go for it, Beth.
Am I? Now, can you hear me? Yes. So thank you guys so much. I appreciate the video, and gosh, all of your remarks were incredible. I want to, for those that are having difficulty viewing the video, I want to do just very brief introductions to our live panels, our panelists that are joining us. I'm going to start with Ron Clark. Ron is a North Carolina peer support facilitator. He is also a wellness recovery action plan facilitator, and recently became the community services manager for Camino Community Center in Charlotte. So he's got a tremendous background, and if for those that have not been able to watch the videos, again, as a reminder, we're going to make sure that links are provided and you guys can access this. So just wonderful remarks. So Ron, welcome. And next we have Blaise Foster. Blaise is a member of the Team USA World Para Powerlifting team. He is also a small business owner. and recently relocated here to North Carolina. I have the privilege of meeting him. Becky Kakula from our national organization knows Blaze and connected us when he moved to town, gosh, just in January. He is a graduate of Slippery Rock University back in 2013 and graduated with a degree in sports management and just has a tremendous passion for fitness. And so again, Blaze, thank you so much for your comments and welcome to our live Q&A. And then Cami Turcott. Cami is, gosh, a longtime friend, and I miss her face. Someday we'll be back together again sometime. But she works with Disability In and has since 2012. She is currently in a role as a manager for the certification and supplier engagement, which she works with suppliers to identify and certify disability-owned businesses, as well as to ensure stakeholder engagement throughout the supplier diversity program. So Cami is just a great resource and partner. And Cami, thank you so much for joining us today. So I want to open it up. Pat, are there any questions? I don't want to be rude and ignore our guests. So, you know, I'm going to have all kinds of things to talk about if people don't have questions. So.
Yeah, so we have a question for Blaze.
Okay.
How was it that you discovered your propensity for lifting weights and getting involved in powerlifting?
That's a great question. I really didn't touch weights until about 8th grade. I joined a wrestling team in 7th grade and mostly up until that time just did like push-ups and sit-ups and stuff. But then we started to get into weightlifting in 8th grade and I kind of liked it, got the feeling for it. And then kind of took a break off it after high school. Just did it once in a while, but then once after college, I really got back into it and stuck with it. And in 2017, I got offered to go to a camp in Virginia, and the rest has been downhill since then. So yeah, that's the question.
And a follow-up to that is, so were your doctors okay with you doing weightlifting, or did they have any concerns because of your small stature?
Yes, they did. My doctor didn't want me to do a lot of squats because of our knees and back. But as far as bench, the doctor was okay with it because it was upper body. But they're mostly concerned with people with dwarfism usually have trouble in their back, hips, and knees. So as long as I'm safe with those three, I'll be okay.
Great question. And you know, Blaze, it's so important, and I know you've got such a passion for physical activity and the importance of that. And Cami, I know you mentioned it as well, is, you know, how our bodies are designed, right? When we think about mental health and wellness, how important physical activity is to the mind. I think so often we think about the prescription medications, right, that are prescribed to, and again, I'm not suggesting that there aren't benefits to those as well when they're needed, for sure. But boy, I know the connectedness of, just like I said earlier, getting outside and just moving, taking a walk, doing whatever it is that just kind of relaxes you. That could be anything from stretching to to just sitting outside and breathing in, taking deep breaths in and out. We can all participate in some level of activity to just relax our bodies and our minds. But I think that is so important to recognize. Allowing ourselves that time and routine. I know that many companies, at least, they support through their employee assistance programs, but then also, some may even have, I think even SAS has a gym on site, right? And so I think about that. And Blaze, I know you've talked and I've talked a little bit about this. You don't really need any adaptable equipment to go into just your local gym and do exercise. Is that correct? Or you bring in any device that you might need? Talk to us a bit about the accessibility of the physical space for you when it comes to working out.
Thank you for that question. So with the gym I joined once I got to North Carolina, it's actually an adaptive gym. It's a Neuse River CrossFit. It's in Raleigh, North Carolina, and it's very adaptive. Got things that are pretty low and things that are very reachable. But as far as like with corporate gyms, I do have a tough time of reaching things and using their machines in the corporate gym. But fortunately, I was able to find a gym outside of the corporate arena. So it's been very beneficial for me.
For you. Fantastic.
Yeah.
And Beth, we have a question for Ron. And Ron, this questioner is asking, what was the difference between the day you crawled out on the bridge and other days where you promised yourself you would seek help?
That's a very good question. Hopefully y'all can hear me. Can you hear me, Pat?
Yeah.
Okay, great. Whoever asked that question is a person with knowledge of what's been going on, because they're right. I promised myself or swore that I would never use many times before, maybe north of 10 times. But there's something that happens to a person when they really mean it to themselves. On that particular day, I realized that I had suffered enough. I got tired of burying my friends, and some of them getting 10, 15 years prison services. And it was just something inside of me that wanted to change. And so I'm a veteran myself. I went to Salisbury VA, I got treatment, and if you heard in the video, I said I surrendered because I was trying to do so much myself. I was like, I can do this. We're taught, I can do this by my own. I could just quit. And I tried that over and over and over till I had to get to the point where I had to surrender. So on that particular day, I knew that there was no turning back. I had all of the problems that life showed would give you was still there. They were even magnified because it was 21 years between the time I addressed any health issues, any financial issues, or life. My kids had grown up around me, but I just did everything people told me to do because my best ideas had me living underneath a bridge. And things began to change little by little. And I just accept I celebrated the small victories. I didn't use for a week. It was a big deal for me. I hadn't been incarcerated for a period of time. Any little opportunity I got to celebrate things, I did. I began to develop the relationship with my kid. And what happened was I chose to never forget that last day that I used, because it's a remembrance of how easily I could go back. My best day in this thing called recovery is better than, my worst day in recovery is better than whatever my best day in active addiction was. So that's a very good question. Hopefully there was an answer in there for you.
There was, and a follow-up to that is, we've touched down a lot on things that employers can be looking for and doing, but I wonder what we can be doing better as a society. And those of you who live in Charlotte know that we had the tent city, and you were involved with that, where people who were homeless were living in horrible conditions. we've got to do a better job with this. We've got to do a better job with this. So I'm sure you have some insights on how we as a society and businesses can support what the society does, can do a better job of addressing the homeless situation.
Absolutely. Very briefly, I'll try to touch on that. People like, what was the speaker name from Charlotte Bridge Homes? We recover out loud. We're no longer in the dark. We share our experience, strength, and hope so that we can be the example that other people can follow that similar path and be productive and buy homes. We can vote. We can pay taxes. We can do everything, whatever that quote unquote normal people do, and educate. Given opportunity, we educate on any platform like this platform. Like let me just rewind. They're hiring people like us today because of our experiences in the past.
Yes.
Right now, I work in corporate America because I came out from under a bridge and learned how to live and be productive in the community. There's a thing called peer support where you can contact me. You should be able to find that peer support and things like that. It's a paid training you could take to use that experience because it's hard to get employment. There are a lot of employers who are really open and who are addressing that, but we still have to educate as many as possible. And given the opportunity, the person in recovery, like myself and the millions of others, we should always recognize that we are the example of that change. And so everything we do, we could possibly be judged as that person who's had the blessings of getting a second chance and being the person that we are designed to be. So yes, the education of the community. A lot of the people in Mecklenburg County, I know that I work with a lot of county commissioners, city council members, a lot of people, community support services. They are aware of the changes that we're doing.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Yeah. Yeah. And this is Beth, Ron, and thank you so much. You know, it is about courage. I mean, it's about, you know, one of the things we really try to encourage internal for companies, right? Internally promote self-disclosure, right? Or sharing your story. And if we could bust through that wall, right, of allowing individuals that are working all over these companies, right, from entry level all the way up to the C-suite, because we all have a story, right? We all have our stories. But finding the courage, that same courage that brought you out from underneath the bridge, right, is to say, let me tell you about my struggles. Let me tell you about my struggles with mental health or depression or addiction or whatever those hidden disabilities might be, as a member or a participant or an employee or an executive within these companies. Man, when people start being really authentic and open and out loud about who they are and what challenges they've had, we all get better. We all get stronger as a result of it. And so that's something that we really encourage companies, and we've seen it, is that when that happens, the transformation of the corporate culture and individuals that have kind of stayed back and less engaged or fearful of being outed are blossom into incredible contributors to the organization. And so thank you for your courage and for what you're doing to help us and the community be better.
Thank you.
So are there other questions or comments? Well, Cami, I want to bring you into the conversation and just again, you've seen tremendous work, particularly in the area of the work you do around supplier diversity and small businesses, and the contributions that individuals with all types of disabilities can have. We think about employment opportunities for people with disabilities, but we know that individuals with disabilities make tremendous entrepreneurs as well. Can you talk to us a little bit about kind of the work that you do to help support the growth of that small business space?
Yeah, absolutely. So first and foremost, I think one of the biggest challenges that people with disabilities, individuals that end up seeking self-employment, is the fact that maybe they don't want to come out and self-identify. Maybe they have self-identified and they've had a negative experience related to it. So when we have individuals come into the program to apply that are approved for certification, and I touched on this earlier, it's really just making them feel like this is a comfortable space, right? It's not about your disability, it's about you as a whole and where your strengths are and maybe where some of your challenges or weaknesses are and how we can help you address those as a business owner to kind of push through and create successes. So if your challenges are lying in management or finance, or maybe you're struggling with understanding what an RFP is or your capability statement, really kind of looking at each of those areas and seeing what kinds of tools and resources we have that we can help provide that business owner with. And whether that's an executive education course at like a Tuck, where they virtually go and attend for a week or two at a time and they really immerse themselves in specific areas of learning, or simply getting on a Zoom call with me and chatting through what some of their biggest challenges are as a business owner, so we can help navigate what's next for them and how we can help for them provide a solution or an answer to really just help them ease their journey down the road, if you will. So again, just providing support wherever they need it. And as I tell all of them, when they come to me, they're human, they're a whole being. While their disability is a huge part probably of their self, we don't necessarily focus on that. If there are challenges, we do kind of navigate those as needed, but at the end of the day, that's a part of who they are. That's not the whole reason that they're here with us. They're here with us because they want to advance their mission within their company. And so we're going to work together to figure that out and what the best path forward is.
Great. Fantastic. Thank you so much, Cami. So I want to be really mindful of time. I know that we are now about 15 minutes out, and just want to leave an opportunity for you to hear and let me give a shout out as well to Jameson Knight from Novant. I know he is on with us, and Jameson, thank you for connecting us with Nicole French and Tommy, as I know you do a lot of work with Bridges Home, and as a service disabled veteran as well. I want to just again thank you so much for contributing to our ability to engage with such tremendous keynotes today in this conversation. And this is an important one. You guys have heard a lot about different types of mental health issues, and this is just a month, right? May is a month that we recognize this as Mental Health Awareness Month, and I just want to encourage you guys to take this information back and share it with your networks as well, because this is a conversation that needs to go well beyond just 1 month out of the year, particularly after all that we have experienced in 2020. We know that folks that have not historically had mental health challenges or struggles with anxiety or depression are seeing an increased level of struggles and cases involving those things, and particularly our kids as well, right? Those of us that have children. Just be mindful of taking care of each other in the process of the recovery of this whole pandemic that we have experienced. So thank you all so much for that. I also want to turn it over to Chauncey Barnhill. Chauncey, are you still with us? Chauncey is our board chair. He's a
I think Chauncey had to leave.
Okay, okay. He's our board chair for Disability in North Carolina. And so wanted to again thank him for participating today as well. As a reminder, we will be sending out again the slides from today's presentations as well as the videos, so that you all can view those at your convenience and share those as well. Pat Kuehl, I want to thank you for your contribution. As we started off and saying in the beginning, I was actually, shh, don't tell anybody, but I was on my honeymoon last week, and Pat was able to hold the fort down, and so she's a big contributor to today's event as well. So thank you guys so much for the work. And Chris Rogers from MetLife, we certainly couldn't have done this without you. So again, thanks to you and your hard work in getting today's presentation and program together. And so
happy to do it. I just wanted to make one comment, is that what I've heard today is it really doesn't matter whether the person you meet is a spiritual sage or on their very last leg. We're all human. We all are on this thing that there's no manual, and we're all trying as hard as we can. So that compassion that we can offer each other, that goes farther than just about anything. So glad to be helpful.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Fantastic. Well, with that, I am going to give you guys about 10 minutes back to your day, which is always a welcome, I think. But thank you so much. For those that do not know about us, please check our website out at di-nc.org. That's Disability in North Carolina. And we would welcome your participation in future events. And as a reminder, we are a membership and sponsorship organization. So if you are interested, please check us out. Give us a call, reach out via email. It's Beth, B-E-T-H, at disabilityin.org, and we'd be happy to answer any questions that you have and help your organization get on the journey to full inclusion of people with disabilities across your organization. So with that, I'm going to thank you all for joining us and have a great rest of your day. Thank you to our panelists as well. Bye-bye.